Today, we'll witness the shocking aftermath when stupid cops wrongfully assault a suspect, only to find themselves facing the consequences of their actions in court. Sit tight as we expose the truth and shed light on the importance of accountability within law enforcement. Number 1. Officer assaults wrong suspect. We start this video with someone who has shown a blatant disregard for human life. The incident occurred on the 26th of July, which is when Officer David Lance Dukes of the Orangeburg Department of Public Safety responded to a complaint about a man who was banging on his neighbor's door in the act of trespass. This complaint also stated that the neighbor, a 58-year-old man who went by the name of Clarence Gaillard, was dangerous because he was armed with a handgun. Understandably, Officer Dukes raced to the scene, and this is where he ultimately ran into Gaillard and his cousin, Mario Julian. As soon as Officer Dukes ran into the pair, he held the men at gunpoint and ordered them to get to the ground.
Get on the ground! Do you not listen? Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
As soon as the pair noticed the police officer, they held their hands up before attempting to obey the officer's orders. Although the younger Julian was able to hit the ground immediately, Gaillard wasn't able to comply as quickly as all parties would have liked. This is due to the fact that he was an old disabled man. Despite this, he was still able to hit the deck as quickly as he could. However, this wasn't to Officer Dukes' liking. Unbelievably, the cop's response was to kick the old man in his head.
Get on the ground! Get on!
Insane. As bad as that was, the kick made Gaillard's head hit the pavement. Goodness.
Listen. Yep, they slammed my head down on the cement. Yep.
Rather than checking on the man he just kicked in the head, Officer Dukes went ahead to place the man in handcuffs before going on to search his pockets for the alleged gun. However, Officer Dukes would find that the older Gaillard wasn't armed with a firearm. Desperate to vindicate himself for his unbelievable actions on the poor Gaillard, he went to look around the premises for any firearm that he could find. Unfortunately, he was unable to find any justification for his excessive use of force, because all he found was a stick wrapped in silver plastic tape that Gaillard admitted he used to protect himself from stray dogs in the neighborhood.
Because when he was behind the truck, I couldn't see what he was doing. And I didn't know where that went. If it was still in his pockets when he come around that car was in.
Understandably, once the stick was found, Gaillard and the other neighbors began to complain about Officer Dukes' excessive use of force. However, the nefarious officer was quick to silence these people so that he could cover up his dreadful actions. He forced the neighbors back into their homes while attempting to drag his injured victim to the police station.
Go back in the house. Go back in the house. Ain't nobody talking to you.
I got head trauma.
Go back in the house.
Be that as it may, Officer Dukes couldn't silence the colleagues who witnessed the incident. Shocked by his awful excessive use of force, it would prove to be impossible to make them believe that he wasn't in the wrong here. Incredibly, as Gaillard complained about how he was treated, Dukes proudly mouthed off about his crimes against the poor man.
Yep, you bust my head down on the cement. Yep, you bust my head.
However, his proud comportment changed when he noticed that his colleagues weren't in cahoots with him. Once he realized that his colleagues wouldn't side with him, he attempted to twist the story by claiming that the force he used was justified.
He wasn't listening.
No, it ain't.
He got like this right here, and we went onto the ground.
He tried to claim that when he arrived at the scene, Gaillard walked around the vehicle in the parking lot with his hands in his pocket, thereby trying to assert that the old man didn't obey his orders. He further emphasized that Gaillard refused to raise his hand and drop his gun when asked. One is forced to wonder how Gaillard was supposed to drop the gun he didn't own. It was shameful conduct from someone that is supposed to uphold justice, because as we see from the footage recorded by Officer Dukes' very own body cam, that both Julian and Gaillard raised their hands the moment Dukes ordered them to. Furthermore, nothing could have justified the punt that he gave Gaillard to the head. It's made even worse when the footage clearly shows that Gaillard was kicked in the head while he was doing his best to follow Officer Duke's orders. Orders that he could barely follow due to his weak and ailing body. Nothing Dukes did could convince his colleagues that he was in the right here, and you can see it in their disapproving faces. What a brute! They were witness to his appalling abuse of his position, and if that wasn't bad enough, the cops were perplexed because they couldn't find the complaint that brought them to the scene. Despite searching for the neighbor who called the police, none of the neighbors stepped forward to assume this role. With no formal complaint, the cops were compelled to let Gaillard and Julien go. This is when the paramedics arrived on the scene to tend to Gaillard's medical needs. Now, many would have used this opportunity to make amends, but no, not Officer Dukes. When Julien demanded for Dukes' business card, the unrepentant officer tried to hide by stating that his station didn't give them one.
You know, that's the reasons I did what I did. You know what I'm saying? That's where I'm coming from.
That proved to be a blatant lie because Officer Pallador, his sergeant who had been observing her subordinate's behavior, stepped in to interfere by giving Julien her business card.
Can I get a card from you?
I don't have one there. We don't have one. They don't give us cards.
Okay, what's your badge number?
1059.
Let me see if I can get my phone.
Hold on, we have cards.
How did such a person get sworn into the police force anyway? Following the incident, these lies added more problems to Dukes' already piling troubles, facing charges such as excessive use of force, obstruction of justice, and official misconduct. Dukes' time as an officer soon came to an end. Within 2 days of the incident, he was fired by the Orangeburg Department of Public Safety for violating the department's use of force policy. Furthermore, Dukes was forced to face charges of first-degree assault and battery, which would see him facing up to a decade in the penitentiary. His chances did not look good because, as we all saw, Dukes was guilty of his violent and heinous crimes. Meanwhile, the Orangeburg Department of Public Safety was forced to settle out of court with the 58-year-old victim by paying him $600,000. He had complied with their officer's instructions, and as such, he definitely didn't deserve a kick to the head. As for Dukes, we are currently awaiting the result of his trial. Number 2. Man arrested for waiting outside girlfriend's nail salon. In the next clip, a man named David would become a victim of police violence simply because he waited for his girlfriend outside of her nail salon. However, as he waited, he was suddenly approached by some cops who arrested him. As he struggled to understand why this was going on, David tried to stay calm.
It's actually late. You can leave them up in my box.
Can I have my lighter for time?
Unbelievably, the female police officer among the cops informed him that he was being arrested for loitering, just because he was standing outside as he waited for his girlfriend. How could this be a crime? Furthermore, it was difficult for David to accept this because he had even paid for his girlfriend's pedicure, which meant that he was a customer of the establishment. Understandably, David was in a state of total confusion. He was a law-abiding citizen who couldn't come to terms with the fact that simply waiting outside a building was loitering. He tried to explain himself, but the cops just wouldn't listen. The female cop even went on to explain the law and tried to define loitering for him.
Wait a minute, you're around everybody's business. Around everybody's business.
How is that loitering?
But the frustrated David continued to assert that he wasn't loitering. Not only did he pay for his girlfriend's nails, he also tried to give them his business card. Despite this, the police were keen to take him into custody, even after his girlfriend tried to intervene. This led her to calling a friend called JJ for help, and although they wanted to bail their friend out of jail, their lack of funds meant that he was held under custody till Monday. Enraged, David struggled to come to terms with his predicament. Outside, JJ and David's girlfriend decided to press charges against the female cop who seemed to have a vendetta against David. On Monday, the court dismissed the charges against David. Unsurprisingly, the female cop was also forced to face disciplinary actions due to her clear abuse of power. One is truly forced to wonder how such an officer was let loose in the streets in the first place.